Hey guys, in this video we're going to be figuring out how to make a line follow program for our robot. Now what is a line follow program? A line follow program allows our robot to see the floor and differentiate between dark and bright colors so that it can make decisions based on what it sees. In this example, the left and right sensors both see a white color, so the robot goes straight. In this example, the left sensor sees a black line, so we want our robot to turn left so that it can remain on the black line. And likewise for this one, the right sensor sees the black line, so we want our robot to take a right so that we can remain on the black line. And one more case we can have is if they both see a black line at an intersection, we can make our robot make decisions based on what intersection it is at. So the sensors we're going to be using are located on the bottom of the robot. The best ones to use for line follow are sensors 17, 16, 13, and 12. And for this example, we're going to be using 16 and 13 in our code. So what is an IR sensor? Each IR sensor is split into two parts. One part sends infrared light, and another part receives infrared light. So for the white surfaces, when infrared light is sent out, that light is reflected back, and the receiving sensor can see that it's a bright surface. In the case of a dark surface, the infrared light is sent out, but the light gets absorbed by the dark surface, so the receiving sensor never receives infrared light back. And that's how our robot knows if something is dark colored or bright colored. So now that we know how it works, let's code it. So the first thing we always need to do is include our library of functions. And just as a reminder, setup is used to run a line of code once, and loop is used to run code continuously while our robot is turned on. So in setup, we want to turn on our motors. And we also want to activate our IR sensors. And to do that, we call the pin mode function. And it takes two arguments. And we are going to be turning on IR sensor 13 and 16. So we'll do 13 first. And we have to say that we are looking for an input on that sensor. So this says read pin 13 for inputs. And likewise for pin 16, we do the same thing. So read pin 16 for inputs. So that's all the setup we need for this program. Now we can jump down into our loop function. And since we're saying if our sensors see a certain color, we want them to make a decision. So we're going to be using condition statements here. So if, and then we're going to call the digital read function. Now what this function is saying is read pin 13 for an input. Is the input a white color or is the input a black color? So just for reference, white is equal to 1 and black is equal to 0. So our first case, we want to look for if both sensors see white, we want to drive straight. So we will say if digital read 13 is equal to 1 and digital read 16 is equal to 1, then we want to drive straight. So just to review this again, this is saying if I read pin 13 and pin 16 and they both equal white, then I want to drive straight. And I'll go ahead and put a note up here 1 is equal to white, and 0 is equal to black. So out of the 4 possibilities of this line read program that we've went over earlier, we've coded one of them. We've said if the left sensor and the right sensor see white, we want to drive straight. See if you can code this case on your own. So pause the video here and try to code this case. So to do that, we'll say else if digital read 13 equals 0 and digital read 16 equals 1. Then we want to make a left turn. So we want to stop our left motor, and we want to drive our right motor. So now we have this case complete. See if you can complete this case on your own. If the right sensor sees a black line, we want to make a right turn. Pause the video and see if you can do that one. Alright, so for this one, we need another else if. And if 13 equals 1, and 16 is 0, and that's saying if 13 sees white and 16 sees black, then we want to make a right turn. Another thing we can do is we can come up here and we can say, just so we can keep track, we can say straight, left, and this one will be right. So to make a right turn, we want to drive our left motor and stop our right motor. Alright, so we have one more case, and that's if both sensors read black, we want our robot to stop. Now there's 2 different ways that we could do this. One is easier than the other, but pause the video and see if you can do it yourself, and I'll go over both of them. Alright, so the first and probably easier way to do it would just be to say else, and then have your robot stop. And this would cover the last case, because if none of these are true, then our robot's just going to stop. But to get some extra practice, we're going to go ahead and say else if, and we're going to say digital read 13 sees black, and digital read 16 sees black. Then we want our robot to stop. So we'll go ahead and compile it to make sure that it has no errors, and it doesn't. So awesome. So once you upload this to your robot and you run it, it's going to run this setup on your robot first, and it's going to turn your motors on, and it's going to turn both of your IR sensors on. And then the entire time your robot is on, it'll be looking for a black line on its bottom IR sensors. So the way this loop function is going to work is constantly while your robot is on, it's going to be continuously running this loop function over and over again. So whenever one of these conditions change, it'll jump to that condition instead. Because it'll be running this loop multiple times a second, so any change that occurs, it'll read it, and it'll be able to make a decision based on that change. So that's a simple line follow program. I'll see you guys in the next video.